2014 Volkswagen Golf TDI. Customer complaint on this one is the electronic power steering. Like, it doesn't, I mean, it's hard to turn. There's no electronic power steering, there's a steering fault. So he's got a steering light on, StabiliTrak stuff, part of the brake system. TP mass, different issue, but I know you guys can't focus in the video, but it's hard to turn. So I did a full system scan, and I'll show you what I came up with. So basically, long story short, after I cleared all the codes and rescanned it, which I have copies of all the other codes there. If you look in here, transmission module, missing message from steering angle sensor, brakes, steering angle sensor, no comm, and then I don't care about the TPMS one. Power steering control module, no signal communication, and electronic central electric. Power steering, no communication. Steering angle sensor, no comm with the gateway for power steering module. Well, if you look in here, this is the power steering module. We have no comm, that's why it's grayed out. We should be talking to it, and that's why the steering's not working. Well, if you look at this, long story short, after doing some research, this is his steering rack. The power steering control module is part of this. Schematics J500, this is the continuation of this page, is the power steering control module. Within that is the torque sensor, the J269, and the steering angle sensor, the G85. And you got all this, you know, you got CAN low and CAN high. We can't talk to this. There's fuse 2 on the fuse panel A that powers this, and it goes to ground. Here's your motor, which is the V187. And there's another ground off of this going down to your grounds. So we're going to check a power for this fuse and the grounds. Probably better to put up on a rack, a lift, and check the connector there to make sure we got power and grounds. If our power and grounds are good, our communication lines are good, we got a bad module suspected. Well, if you go in the service data, and you pull up, so SA2 is this guy right there, which is SA2 is 80 amp nominal value, fuse 2 on fuse panel A, power steering control module J500, power steering motor V187, 30 amp. I checked this and checked this, those are all good. We're going to go down to the module when we get on the lift. Once we get some room here to put on the lift, then we'll check that to make sure our power and grounds are good. And it shows you, it breaks it down here, but you've already seen that. So that's what we need to do to see where we need to go. So like SA2, that's the page it took us to right there. But if the ground side is 652, you know, it could be a bad ground, but we'll look. Doubt it. 652, transmission engine ground connection. We'll check that as well. And then if you look at that, 652 is right there on top of the ground, right above the starter. Sorry, my hand's in the way. Check that ground right there, 652. So basically what we're going to do is check power, grounds at the module, the communication lines. If that's all good, then we have a bad module. We got to read whether service status is a program and code it. We'll have to figure that out as well because we have no comm. And then if you look in here, take this with a grain of salt. We're actually using Volkswagen service data. But if you look in here, come on, focus phone. Well, I'm not communicating to it right now. I unplugged it from the car. But anyways, it tells you basically same thing in the scan tool. Check power, ground. If the fuses are good, normally it's a bad module. So we got to program it, enter a code it, depending on what we need. So we'll get that set up next. Already got on the lift here, but C right here is your 80 amp one. You can see 80 amp there. And then I checked all the fuses. Well, all the 30 amp fuses are all good. So I'm gonna just get up in the air, look at the power and grounds right to the steering control module, and then we'll verify power and grounds and wire integrity is good, and we'll go from there. All right, so T2A connector, which is right here. T2A, 1 is ground, brown, and then red is 2 is power. That's the fuse we were talking earlier. That's the connector. We're just going to verify that with our power probe. Yes, it's not going to show if we can take a load or handle a load, but that'll prove right here is the connector. I unplugged this one here. I got it running. I unplugged it. There's your red and your brown. There's another connector here and another connector up there. Can't see it. You'd have to pull the subframe down to check the CAN bus lines. We may or may not do that, depending on what we find. So I got my power probe hooked up. Can apply voltage, we can apply ground, we can check them. So right here, alternator voltage, ground. What we can do now is we can test it with a test light, but it's not going to draw that many amps, maybe an amp or two, but just to prove that it is working that way. All right, we got our test light here. White is 2.3 amps. Black is a half an amp, 0.57. It's gonna go white to green. But so if you can see there, it lights up. It's only drawing 2.3 or 2.4 or 5 amps. 2.3, I think. But that proves we got wire integrity is good. I'm sure it's fine to handle the amperage. So now we can verify CAN bus and then make the call that needs a new power steering control unit. All right, there's JJ again.
Howdy-ho.
So T3BQ is our CAN low and then our CAN high. So there's our 3-pin T3BQ, 1 and 2, CAN low and CAN high, and power 15. We can check these real quick on the CAN bus with a scope and make sure that's good. And if that's good, we're making a call. It needs a steering control rack module. All right, so I got my VCMI hooked up on the oscilloscope. Just using a chassis ground. I'm going to CAN high, which is pin 2. If you look right here, you got it. God, that glare is bad. Hey now. Show you right there. There's CAN high from 2.5 to 3.5, 3 3/4. Get over here so you can get a better view. Put a trigger on. So there's that. 2.5 to 3.5, 4. So that's good. Let's go to CAN low now, which is going to be the other pin. Pin 1. I'm in pin 1 now. It's my breakout leads. If you look over here, there's CAN low, 2.5 to 1.5, 1 1/4. So that's good. So there's all your zeros and ones in there. So our CAN bus is good. Let me check the voltage. We'll see what that black wire does and go from there. So I'm in this other hole, the black wire right there, pin 3 to ground, and I have no signal or voltage, but 0 volts, but I need to see what that actually says on the schematic again. So we did 1 CAN low, 2 CAN high, 3 says power 15 on the T3BQ, but if you look on here, we did T3BQ low and high, pin 1 and 2. Well, let me see, I don't see another TB3Q. I do right there actually. Okay, that's the ground side. T3BQ is the ground side of this because it comes down. This is separated from this. that comes down through here, and it goes to, well, hang on a second. That is a power, it looks like. All right, so what we need to look at now is this pin. We have no power here, and it shows we should have power on pin 15, or not pin 15, power 15, terminal 15. So pin 3 on here. Well, if you look, when it comes down, comes over, goes down here, we need to see what 28 is and what 32 is. It comes back up, make sure this fuse is good, comes back up, goes through here, comes over to here, start a relay, terminal 50 relay, come over, come up here. This relay's got to suck over, make sure this is sucking over, make sure it's got power to here. So we need to check this fuse and this fuse and see, because that could cause our issues as well. Well, I'm having a hard time finding 28 and 32 in the schematics. I'll keep looking, but B278 is positive connection, 15 amp in main wiring harness. So we need to look at these fuses here. Make sure this is good and this is good. You know, we could always give power to this wire, and if we have COM again, then we know that there's an issue to it. So more to come, getting the schematics more and find this other stuff. All right, I got my assistant JJ.
What's up?
We got a Phil's probe, so we're not hurting the wire. We're giving 12 volts in with the power probe right there. Trying to communicate to it. We still have a no COM. It's just a real quick check. We'll do a fault scan here to make sure and see what we can do and go from there. All right, so we did a little bit of a scan. Let's see what we got for codes. Once it catches up, come on, I'll tell. Put a report. No communication to the module, it's just your RACs. So you leave it on voltage there. He's got a good connection. Same thing, no COM. I just wanted to make sure we weren't missing nothing for that power wire. We'll still check power to that wire. But this just proves here we got a bad power steering control module. That's bad. Yeah, I should have communicated by now. We'll verify here. Yep, no COM. If you look at the codes, even after we clear them, no COM to it. So we'll look at that other fuses, and we got to get a new steering control module. Looks like we have to pull the subframe down and go from there, program it and code it. Right, JJ?
You got it, buddy.
I wanted to check it one more time, so I have my probe in there with that tape to switch on alternator voltage, just to make sure we're good to go. Which we still have no COM. So, like I said, I'll check those fuses quick. I just wanted to verify that. Maybe that circuit there is only on when you're cranking up. Look at the schematics again. But at least this will eliminate that being another issue that could cause this. So yeah, definitely a no COM. Definitely in the power steering control module. So right here, SC2, fuse 2 on C instrument panel, or fuse panel, which is right, say hi to Bob, right here, SC2 10 amp F2. If you look up here, number 2, 15 amp. Actually, that's a 10 amp right there. And then if you look, it's a 10 amp one right there.
That's gotta be.
So like it showed a 10 amp. Like I said, it's good. Which is right in here. So let's find where the other fuse is now. Alright, so SB7, fuse 7 on panel B, fuse 7, panel B 40 amp, terminal 15 supply, J329 30 amp. So if you look at F7,
well, you go down the interstate, we tried running over there too.
SB7 would be that one right
And you know they did such
there.
a
We already
fine
checked all
job
those
on
30
that
amp ones.
bridge.
So we already checked these. Yeah, it's this one right here, which is good. My camera focuses. That's good. So that's good. These other fusible links in here are good because we proved it down at the power supply, not power supply, down at the steering rack. So that's all good. So I think that only gets part of that wire down there at certain times when you crank it or something. Even though we gave it power, everything's good. Power, ground, CAN bus is good. It needs a new power steering rack. All right, one last thing. So removing it walks you through per service data, take the subframe down, all this good stuff, right? Well, anyways, fast forward to all this. I think the book shows like 4 hours to labor, right? But when you're done, you got a basic setting for the steering angle sensor, which is part of it with the scan tool. You got to adapt it and adapt the steering with the tester. So we can do all that. When it's all done, we'll talk to the customer and see what he wants to do. So that is it for this video.